Most managers are equipped to manage neurodivergent people.
Bullshit.
We're diagnosing ADHD and autism in numbers that hasn't happened before, which is something we'll come on to.
There's too many people being diagnosed and things. When we've all been like this already, we just understand now that there's kind of a label for it.
I got an ADHD diagnosis 4 weeks ago. I went to a presentation on ADHD and I went, oh God, that's me. I thought, whoa, hello. It was almost like this is your life. Diagnosis for both autism and ADHD being higher is a good thing because clearly we're doing it. Perception is that there's not much of a system behind it to then support people.
That's it. So it's diagnosed and dumped is the way that we describe it. I was that boss who probably didn't understand neurodivergence. I get it. I get the side of being a boss and having certain things that you have to do. But looking back, probably half my team were ADHD as well as me because I was in sales recruitment, and I would change quite a lot.
This is Manufacturing Uncensored. No PR, no safe answers. This episode's about neurodiversity, not as a buzzword, but it's about performance and leadership issues.
And if you're thinking as a leader, this doesn't apply to me, it will apply to you the most.
Most managers are equipped to manage neurodivergent people.
Bullshit.
Why?
They don't ask enough questions, they're not curious enough, they don't really understand how different brains work and how to get the best out of them. They just kind of have set ideas about the way things are done and the way things have always been done, and they don't listen to people having different ideas, coming up with different concepts, struggling in certain areas. They find that hard with certain things that are part of neurodivergence. Whether it's too directness, speaking up too much, a massive strong sense of justice and fairness, which is a big issue in terms of dealing with management, I guess, as neurodivergent people. And the old RSD, which is the rejection sensitivity dysphoria. And I think if managers really took the time to listen to them and just be curious and ask them what works for them, then they'd get a hell of a lot more out of people. Hell of a lot.
Do you think perversely it's actually getting worse now that management of people gets more corporate and policy based?
Yeah, I mean, I think that ADHDers and autistic people, the sort of big two if you like, need to know what needs to be done, why it needs to be done, when it needs to be done by. So I think ADHDers don't like following rules, so they would struggle with that. Autistic people do like following rules, but only if they get those rules and they think that those rules are correct. If they don't get it, then they're like, why are we doing all this red tape? Why is all this red tape happening around it? Policies and procedures do kind of kill the ideas and the strengths of ADHD and autistic neurodivergent people. So
you almost would take the view that we're diagnosing ADHD and autism in numbers that hasn't happened before, which is something we'll come on to. But actually, bizarrely, the managers of 30, 40, even 50 years ago, before ADHD and autism was classified as an official thing, in some ways they were maybe even more. They were better equipped to manage because they weren't so policy driven, and so it has to be this management technique. There was probably less flexibility.
In some ways, but then when I first started my job, people were calling people thick and F-bombing and C-bombing around the office. And so some parts of it weren't great. But yes, there was less policy procedure, less covering my own arse, I suppose, attitude, which allowed people to have that creative flair that are neurodivergent. So we've got better at some things, because we have to do, because we have to look after wellbeing and things. But obviously there's a massive stigma around neurodivergency, and there's too many people being diagnosed and things. When we've all been like this already, we just understand now that there's kind of a label for it.
And for the people listening or watching, wondering who are you and what qualifies you to talk about this, can you give us an intro?
Yeah, so I'm Ellie Kay. I am 49 years old, unfortunately 50 next year. I've been in recruitment 25 years. I've been a business owner, several businesses. My biggest one turned over 1.8 million. I found out I was ADHD at 45. It made a lot of sense, lots of crazy decisions in my life, good and bad. I was that boss who probably didn't understand neurodivergence staff that's worked for me. So I get it. I get the side of being a boss and having certain things that you have to do. But looking back, probably half my team were ADHD as well as me, because I was in sales recruitment, and I would change quite a lot now. So now my big aim is to move forward, is to get businesses on board with recognising the neurodivergent staff, seeing what the strengths are, making sure they're in the right role, and not letting them sink, listening to them. Where are they struggling? Where's the challenge areas? How can we help them do better? Because that's what we're all about now. People in recruitment, people used to want to join companies for money and progression. Now it's all about well-being. It's all about being looked after. They will join companies who they think gives them better packages in terms of holidays and flexibility and well-being. And that's the big one really for new people coming in, or people that's even been in the industry, especially since COVID as well. So the criteria's changed a lot. So I'm keen to get out there and tell businesses, I know recruitment, I know business, I know about neurodivergency, and my husband's autistic as well, so I know all the different aspects of it. And listen to your staff, be curious, find out what's working best for them, find out where the challenge, and change things up. This is happening. People are just realising it's always been around, but now we've got the knowledge, and knowledge is key, or king, whichever it is. So why not make these changes, and then you'll have loyal staff that want to work for you, and there won't be as many ADHDers moving every couple of years because they feel unjust or unfairness in the office. You will retain them, and you will encourage more people to join that are creative.
So what are the services that you offer then to businesses?
So I do coaching, mainly to women. I've got group coaching and one-to-one to sort of help them manage these challenge areas and to feel less guilt and shame for things that have been put down on over the years. I think they say it's like 12,000 more negative messages by the age of 12, 20,000 more by the age of 12 for people who are ADHD. And that...
Sadly, it's yet another thing I understand in the medical world where it's been very male biased on diagnosis. So even though this is not a new thing, but late 70s, early 80s, we became aware of ADHD and autism. Yet again, this is a situation that's been very male biased, and women with ADHD dealing with what they need and supporting them is on massive catch-up, right?
Yeah, definitely. So women have only just started getting diagnosed recently because it tends to show up differently. So I'm combined type ADHD, which means I have the hyper side and the inattentive side. I hate those phrases, but that's what it is. A lot of women that I coach have just got the inattentive side, so they've not got the hyper side, so that wouldn't show up in a classroom. Even when you've got the hyper side like me at school, I would talk loads, but I wouldn't be running around the classroom, which you would say it traditionally was ADHD, boys running around the classroom. I would just talk a lot and get distracted about everything. So it's the knowledge of it showing up differently for girls, and quite a lot of girls are ADHD as well, which means because they've got the autistic side as well, that can mute the ADHD side a bit, or it can fight with each other quite often, so it might not be as apparent then that they're ADHD. So it seems like everybody's getting diagnosed ADHD or autistic, but we've always been like that. I can see it in my parents, although they deny it. They're in the 70s. My dad's got to grips with it now, I think.
Are you on the slide just doing a questionnaire?
Well, you can just tell, like, my dad's in his 70s, massive go-getter, started his own business when he was younger, really, really gone for it in life, but he's a massive character. But then he was big Leeds United, not hooligan, but let's say he liked the odd fight now and again, so he got the dopamine hit from there. So he had to sort of, he was into business, but also into that kind of side. Is just a typical ADHD, really. And my mum, I would guess, would be a combination of the two, but I can't say that because she disagrees.
Somebody I know in their late 70s told me a couple of weeks ago that they don't think autism is real, or it's overdiagnosed. Then about 2 minutes later, show me some photos about how they've colour-coded their Hornby train. And you're like, yeah, well, how can you show?
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Kinda like that,
We were locked out of the house a lot as kids. That's all
Right,
I'm saying.
okay,
My
yeah.
mum kept forgetting a key and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think after doing recruitment for 25 years and having people work for me, and I've recruited in all sorts of different areas, I've pivoted several times. I found myself like last year thinking I want to change. In typical ADHD, I signed up for a course the next day to a coaching course. So I've done an ADHD coaching course, I've done an ICF coaching course. And then I thought, train to be a workplace mediator, because I do think a lot of ADHDers in particular find themselves in grievances and disciplinaries with time blindness and taking on too much people pleasing, etc.
Yeah.
And really, mediation is just, rather than going down this legal thing of legal battle of grievance and discipline, is just have a chat.
Yeah.
I'll have a chat with you, you have a chat, I'll chat with them, and get each other to see each other's side. And then I'm getting into businesses and doing talks, really, conference talks, or
What's the
lunch
mediation like? Are you finding it's actually quite simple things to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, when I went on the course, it was mainly HR people on the course,
Yeah.
and then just me as a business owner.
That must have been a fun day, right?
They're really good. Do you know, I had a really negative view of HR because in recruitment, I'm constantly trying to get past the HR to get the business. I'm like, God, HR again. But I mean, one of my really close friends is off that course, and they were sound, but it was hard for them to come out of that policy procedure brain. Whereas for me, I'm like, isn't this just sensible? Like you would just have a chat with someone and find out what their gripe is, and as you would do with two friends that have fallen out, and then get them to kind of see each other's point of view and come up with some objectives and some criteria that they can stick to, and then move forward with it, and it is successful a lot of the time. But yeah, that's something I want to do more of this year.
Yeah.
Should we get into uncensored headlines? Ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to give you some talking points from, it's usually industry, but ADHD in general, and we want your opinions on them. ADHD diagnosis in adults are rising sharply in the UK. Is that better awareness, or is it systems breaking down?
The awareness is, diagnosis is
diagnosis
rising,
is rising sharply.
Yeah, it's just because we're more aware. So we're reading up, we're listening to things, we're understanding that we've always been this way. And so I think the diagnosis, you could argue that you don't need to be diagnosed unless you want to take medication. I think it's just peace of mind. I think it makes people, certainly when I got diagnosed, it made me feel, thank God for that, It's not an excuse, but it's a reason why you might make certain decisions in your life that can be life-changing. That's been the case for me. And much of the people that I coach have had a lot of trauma in their life.
Yeah.
And a lot of it could be attributed to risky behaviour, impulsive decisions, and just finding themselves in tricky situations at work where they've been falling short for whatever reason, because of not being heard. So I kind of, people are getting diagnosed because of increasing awareness, yeah.
Is there a vacuum? I think the diagnosis for both autism and ADHD being higher is a good thing, because clearly we're doing it. Perception is that there's not much of a system behind it to then support people.
That's it. So it's diagnosed and dumped is the way that we describe it. It's like, oh, you've got your diagnosis, there you go. Do you want some meds? You can try that.
Yeah.
Interestingly, if people have autism and ADHD, the clients I've had like that, if they take the meds, their autistic traits come out big time.
Is that right?
Because it kind of quietens down the ADHD massively. And so the full autistic brain is there, and they prefer it, a lot of them.
Really?
Because the ADHD side is the more, it's just chaotic, really. You've got all the different thoughts going through your head at once. So when you quieten that down, because I've been on medication before, I'm not on it now, but when you quieten that down, then the autistic side comes out.
Yeah.
And they find that works better. In the workplace, that's easier for them.
Yeah. So I suppose the point is, yes, again, it's where almost industry has to take over from government. Diagnosis, your employees, your colleagues, telling people, declaring that they have been diagnosed with ADHD and autism, means that actually, as you were saying, apart from medication, leads to a position then that businesses need to probably yet again take over from the government, and it's a bit ranty, and I don't know why I'm being so ranty, and quickly get match fit then to support care and get the most out of their people, for their people, let alone the business.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to make you more money. You know, you are going to make more money if you're going to have people who want to work for you and feel nurtured and supported. So it's good for both people. It's good for the employee because they feel like they're getting support and they can be their own self. They don't have to mask and mirror anymore. They can use the creativity and they can use the strengths, and they don't feel the guilt and shame for the challenge areas because it's out there in the open and supported. And for the company, not just for the neurodivergent staff, but for all the other staff as well, it's going to make it a much better place to work.
Yeah.
You know, and the support being things like coaching, which I provide, which the government does have the access to work, but it's a nightmare, absolute nightmare. You know, the waiting list is like a year or whatever, but that does give you maybe, and it is out of a hat, so 12 sessions, 16 sessions, 20 sessions, everybody seems to get different amounts, you know, and and then sometimes it's computer says no and they don't give them anything for no reason at all. But that's where it is. But I think the main thing, even over coaching, which is my business, is a nurturing coaching manager who gets it. And you can't just say, oh, you've got ADHD, you can do what you want. But it's more like, what can we do to support you? You know, how can we help you? Do you know what I mean?
But, I mean, a conversation we always have in industry is the skills gap, right? And if, yes, I know we need to get millions of more people into manufacturing, but if we're losing people anyway because we're not supporting them, because managers don't know how to keep people retained.
And it's not the manager's fault in a lot of ways. They need to go on training. That's something else that I've devised, like a neurodivergent management training course, so that they can recognise it in the staff and they can support those staff. And the staff come to them and feel, because loads of them are hidden. Loads of them that I coach haven't even told their company. Like, I spoke to a girl the other day who, she went off for an interview, it went really well, round to the fourth round, told them her ADHD, didn't get the job, generic, you didn't get the job, and she feels like, should I not disclose it now because it sounds like it's gone against me. And that's the worry, you know, people are really worried about saying that they have got a neurodivergency in case it goes against them.
So we have a stigmatism vacuum as well.
Massive. And I think that's, again, when people come on my course or I do the talk, the managers get it more and they think, oh, that makes sense. I can see why that person does this and why that person does that and how I could possibly help. Obviously, some people think, I can't be bothered doing that, or it's a lot of hard work or whatever, but it's tiny tweaks that would make that person work a lot better if you just listen to them.
I think in however long I've been working, 27 years, I think about the amount of people who must have been either ADHD or autism and left their role. Were the most incredibly talented people. And you just, people have always got this perception like a 600 brake horsepower engine trying to go through bicycle wheels almost. And you watch them go through it, and you think the rate of return that those people could have given their employers, which is not what you should be saying out loud, but it's a factor, right? Is huge, and it's so important that we get a better understanding because there's a huge productivity element to it.
That's it. It's going to be better for the employer as well. I think the main thing that runs through for both sides, ADHD and autism, is this sense of justice and fairness and respect for the boss. If they don't respect the boss, or they feel like the boss has made decisions that are just not fair or just, they won't stick around.
Where does loyalty sit with ADHD and autism?
I think, and I can't make a sweeping statement, so I think autistic people, if they like where they work and they enjoy the work, will probably stay in a job and be loyal a lot longer. ADHDers will too, but they're more likely to flip over things in terms of the justice and fairness piece. They're more likely to think that I'm not having that, you know, that's, and they'll speak out, and then the boss won't like it. So they will stick it out. They will stick with anything, whether it's a relationship or work, if they feel like it's an equal, fair place to work and they feel supported.
Workplace grievances involving neurodiversity are increasing.
Because people are realising that the neurodiverse, probably were always there. It's probably always more likely to be neurodivergent people, but now they're getting diagnosed, and that's apparent for the reasons that I've said, really. But also things like, obviously with ADHD, more disorganised, you tend to be a people pleaser. So you'll take on too much work, and then you'll let people down. You know, oh yeah, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, I don't mind doing that. And then you end up letting people down because you've got too much on. That's a common thread. And time blindness, sort of expecting things to take a lot shorter time. Everything's 20 minutes. It'll take 20 minutes, it'll take 20 minutes. I'm the same. And it takes an hour. So it's things like that probably bite them on the bum.
And those managers that are sitting in these grievances, again, you probably want to avoid a sweeping statement, but are they just blind to it, or do they know that this is happening? Do they know that there's people in their organisation neurodiverse, and they just don't take responsibility?
I think it's a bit of both, really. I think that there isn't the education out there for them to understand the difference in these brains. So it looks like an ADHD and might be being lazy in their mind for not doing this, or, you know, how could you possibly forget this? Because for someone neurotypical, it would seem strange not to be able to do it. But if they learnt more about how that brain worked, then they would realise that they're not that person. They're not lazy. They're actually really hard working. Yeah. It's just that they can't get their head around whatever it is, or the disorganisation that they need help with. So I think that it is lack of education, really, a lot of it. I think that's the problem.
I'm sure you probably come across companies that do claim that they support neurodiversity. Yeah. But I'm guessing that they don't actually change how they work. So what is it that they should be changing?
I think it's that. I think it's getting the managers trained up on it. Do you know what I mean? Getting people in to explain how it works. I use lived experience to explain it. I think sometimes I've heard, like the other day, I heard somebody say that the boss had said, why can't you have a superpower like so-and-so? They're using ADHD like a superpower, whereas you're just carrying it around like a big weight. And it's like, that's terrible, because there's lots of things that come into play, you know, your social background, your environment, you know, it's all, you can't just say because one person's using it as a superpower and, you know, Stephen Bartlett, what's it called, Bartlett?
Yeah.
is ADHD, he's doing really well, yeah. But then there's people who are not doing well, you know, quite a lot of the prison population's arguably ADHD, because the dopamine that they're getting,
I mean, they reckon a very high percentage.
Very high percentage, I think, yeah. So they do need just more training. That's what they need to do. They need to recognise it and not just do National ADHD Day or National Neurodivergent Day and we're doing our bit for it, but actually put it into play. But as I say, what I keep saying over and over again is it's not just for the neurodivergent individual, it's for the business. The business is going to do so much better if they just listen to them and support those individuals.
For me, this is yet another case where SMEs are kicking it. Because for years and years and years, I'm talking like more S than the M on E, and this is why I annoy all the corporate people and lose customers, is that an SME is more likely to just work with its team. I mean, some of its policies will be not so great, like what's a grievance policy and stuff like that, but you've got to look at actually, you're right, I think a lot of the larger businesses, I was staying next to the Google offices last night in King's Cross, and the list of things they do, but are they, you know, is it tokenism, are they doing it right? But actually SMEs, which businesses you run, businesses I run, we're actually probably better at it because we treat everybody like an individual, we don't policy it. And I think it's another thing where dare I say it, that probably the government could learn from SMEs about how they look after their people. And actually that's yet another thing that can be scaled up rather than just corporate policies. A lanyard or a slogan on it don't deliver much, in my opinion.
No, I think that's it. I think when I had my business for 20 odd years with like maybe 7 staff max, I knew them all inside out. I knew all the backgrounds. I knew, you know, I had regular sit downs with them. It just informal, you know, like over coffee stuff. I never had a grievance, never had a disciplinary. I fired quite a few people, but that was with like a warning, a written warning, whatever, just because they weren't performing. But I never had that scenario. I'd just chat it out. Do you know what I mean? I would just say, what's wrong? You know, how can I help you? What can we do? Whatever.
But you're right. Like, in an SME, you know everyone. So let's talk about corporates then, because there'll be a lot watching this from our network. So really, we're talking policy and processes.
But most corporates are just a cluster of SMEs in one building. Yeah, so, it's have a look at it. It's most, but they get these overarching policies, which in some ways are very good. I mean, I was looking at staff handbooks with some of the legislation coming in the next 2 years yesterday, and it's amazing how far we've come on the menopause, and that actually needs some quite hard and fast inked up policy on it. So that's great, but some of the other policies are so restrictive, like sick pay policies. Is that a big corporate is little SMEs together, whether it's by department, by product, whatever, and you ought to give the mobility for those teams to look after themselves. Sick pay would be, if you part neurodiversity in one, sick pay would be one, is that you don't know why somebody is sick, so you can't really have a hard and fast policy. There has to be nuance. And I would say that these corporates need to trust their teams, or the leader of their teams, to have that nuance on sick pay, but also on sick health and sick leave, but also on neurodivergence as well.
Yeah, I agree, and I think they are like each department seems to do things differently. And if you've got a good head of department, then they might be more lenient about any mental health illness or whatever it is. Some of the stories I've heard with people coming back off sick are terrible as well. Like just no easing in gently, and that's the same with women who've been off pregnant. No easing in gently, no sort of personal scenario. And this is what it's all about now. This is, whether you're a corporate or a small business, wellbeing is like the front and foremost thing that people look for when they're changing job. Again, being in recruitment all this time, you're speaking to people, it's gone from what's the biggest salary, where can I get the most increase in terms of growth and stuff, to, how many holidays, what's the sick days, what's not sick days, but what's the maternity leave or whatever, how flexible can you be on things, working mums and things, that's really difficult. So things need to change. The same in schools. We just need to be a little bit more modern in our way of thinking.
Let's get into the fun bit.
Oh gosh.
Bullshit or backbone. Most performance issues blamed on individuals are actually just system failures.
A backbone.
Okay. Why?
I just think that some systems are absolutely terrible and archaic, and they need to move with the times, and individuals who just can't understand why we'd be going through all this massive red tape to do these single things. They've got a point, listen to them, change it up. Why, just because one thing worked like 20 years ago doesn't mean it's going to work now. And you might have spent a load of money on a new system, but it's got that many steps in it that we're thinking, why do we need to do all these steps? It doesn't make sense. It's taking away the time. Individuals who are actually working it, they know it. You might not know it, they know it because they're doing it, and then you're expecting them to do the same amount of work whilst logging all this different stuff on a system. So I think it's an easy scapegoat to say it's an individual.
Flexible working solves most neurodiversity challenges.
I'd say bullshit for that, because I'd say that it does solve a lot for some. I never liked it. I love working in an office. I'm in sales. I like working with people. I enjoy that. But for some people, they much prefer working from home. They feel comfortable because they can change the lighting, because I get massive migraines with strip lighting. It's not too bad in here, but I get massive migraines. Or like some people are autistic, mainly it might get the struggle with noises, and it just disrupts them. They have this monotropism where they can totally hyperfocus on something, but disruptions of someone just tapping away on a keyboard or making a coffee or whatever.
Right, this is what I'm going to jump on. The comorbidities of ADHD are fascinating. From more likely to suffer from hay fever. More likely to have migraines.
That's a big one.
There's a massive one. Even there's some information about thinning of veins and stuff. The amount of comorbidities of ADHD is unbelievable.
I'll have to look those up. But I know that the migraine one is the typical one with ADHD, and it really, I can be out like a full day being sick and so really bad, like really poorly. And a lot of my clients have had that as well. With autism, it's the noise aversion. So my husband gets that. Like in a restaurant, you walk in and he can just hear everything that's going on in the kitchen. He can't listen to me, which is very annoying at times. But he can't listen to me talking all this interesting stuff. But he's just listening to these people talking there.
Yeah.
I think it's more autism that, or the people who've got both.
Yeah.
That's the struggle. But it can be things like textures as well, touch and things. They struggle with clothing a certain way, or eating certain textures in the mouth. I just have the migraine one, which is a bummer, but I have it a few times a year. But all these things, I think that's why flexible working for those people. You know, my husband works from home on a Friday. He gets loads done because there's nobody talking to him, there's nobody interrupting him. If I ever walk in, he's really annoyed because he's in this monotropic state of doing some 20,000 lines on a spreadsheet, and I just burst in asking if he wants a cup of tea, and it's like throws him off. So I know not to do that anymore.
Yep.
But so I think being able to control the lighting, sounds and things, that's why it works better. But everybody's different. If you meet one ADHD, you've met one ADHD, so it's not the solution to all problems. I think it is a big one for a lot of people. But and I think I've heard companies that suddenly make a change, say, right, sorry, but in 2 weeks' time we're all going to be back in the office. That ain't good for anybody neurodivergent. That's going to cause a lot of anxiety. And the main thing I want to get across is that these things are going to mean that they've got a mental health issue as a result.
Yeah.
And that's going to cost you a lot more money in time off sick. If you work with the people rather than against them, then you're going to have less time off sick.
So how should companies roll something like that out?
It's tough.
Like
It's tough. I'm not saying it's easy. Well, when they're coming back to work,
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people who prefer working from home will just leave that company, if I'm
Right.
honest. Because if you're going to do it straight from one thing to another, that suddenly, then they'll just leave.
Yeah.
But I guess it's gradual, and with a lot of sort of heads up, if you like, so a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
time to process it and do it gradually, one day at a time. And yeah, people may leave. But I think offices, if they could be set up with darker areas, this is hard, I know, but big money, big corporate money, you can do these things.
Yeah.
Have different breakout areas where people can work in a darker, more of a dark setting or whatever would work better.
Yeah.
If you want to.
Well, if these corporates can afford putting slides and ball pits and
Exactly.
things into offices to keep
Yeah,
people
this would be
engaged,
better.
then-
Is
Yeah.
it that expensive? You know, it's you're right. I mean, it's that thing is, you can almost mental health wash, right, with ball pits and stuff like that, where somebody's just asking for a 40-watt bulb rather than a 100-watt bulb.
Exactly, and that is what I'd be asking
You know,
for.
I don't think ever overlook anything in employment. And look, I'm not saying I'm a model employer, although Sleaford Employer of the Year 2020.
Oh, really? What happened since?
I don't want to be rude about the area of Lincolnshire where my business is based. So I was probably the only person who wasn't involved in slave labour, so that's probably that. That might be edited out.
No, it's
okay. It's me going home in a different way. But you know, for £2 difference, you
I
can make
know.
such an exponential difference.
That's it. You know, I had one lady who was saying that they won't give her a plug for the lamp, you know,
Yeah.
£7 to put a plug on a lamp so that she can have the lighting better. They're saying, oh, well, we've got the lamp, you can plug it into your laptop, but it wasn't working properly, so she said about the plug and they wouldn't let her have it. It's just daft things like that, really. Battling against these small adjustments, you know, is crazy to me.
HR processes protect neurodivergent employees.
Bullshit. Massively
I had a
bullshit.
feeling you'd say that.
Massively, and that needs to be changed as well. You know, look, I'm not making a sweeping statement. A lot of HR are learning more about it, and they're people that I'd like to target in terms of explaining things. I've done quite a lot of lunch and learns with them. But changing the policy and things.
Are you saying HR people like a free lunch? Because we've heard this as well.
Who doesn't like a free lunch? But
my wife's in HR, so that really, with the comment about sleeping in place, I'm really not going home, am I? Oh God, okay, right, sorry.
But yeah, I think that they just, again, it's the archaic, you know, attitude of everything from court down to schools, down to HR policies. Just change it up, you know, go with it. You know, people are getting the diagnosis more because it's making them feel better. You can have less people off sick. You can have less people off with anxiety and depression because now they're not going to feel like that. It's going to think, actually, I am this person. It's who I've always been.
Yeah.
and I feel supported. So you can have less time, less money spent on sick leave. So it needs to be changed, yeah.
Good intentions are enough if leaders care.
Good intentions are enough if leaders care. I'm torn with it. I think, what do you mean by good intentions? It's a bit vague, that for me.
If the leadership has good intentions about their staff, is that good enough?
If they care, he said.
If they care.
I think caring is the most important thing, but it's a bit wishy-washy, that question for me. Sorry. It's
Well, we can scrap that one if you want.
No, I think
He'll blame ChatGPT for that one.
Is it? Yeah.
So
No, I think it's caring, the boss caring, the manager caring is the biggest one.
Yeah.
So if they've got good intentions, that would mean that they were likely to listen to a talk or a training and stuff like that. So I do think if they're willing to learn, if they're willing to get educated and listen to their staff and care for them, then that is enough. You don't get it right all the time. I've made mistakes, but it's learning from those mistakes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it is enough if they're willing to learn from the mistakes and listen to people.
The toughest thing about employing people, when you take a step back to a process like this, is combining structure with no structure. You have to have a lot of stuff policied out, right? But at the same time, it's how you build in the level of flex so that you can display care and give people a right reply that works for them actually as well.
Yeah.
It's it applies to neurodivergence, but it applies pretty much to everything. But neurodivergence will be a critical one where you can make any difference. You need to have a policy, of course, because there has to be something to police. You can't just use ACAS for everything.
Yeah.
But it's a constant fight when you're managing people, you employ people. How do you get the balance between compassion and structure? Compassion and structure. And obviously bigger businesses will lean towards structure and get in a lot of trouble. Smaller businesses will lean towards compassion, get in a lot of trouble. That balance is, I mean, I've run businesses now for 10 years. And I'd still say that was probably my hardest bit.
It is hard.
Yeah.
I mean, with me, I mean, my policies probably, I never had grievance, never had discipline, like I said.
Yeah.
But even the people that I let go still like me and respect me now because they realise I was fair.
I can't say the same. But
I can say that. I can say that.
Yeah.
Can't really think of anybody that would dislike me, even people that I had to let go because I gave them a fair chance.
Yeah.
And that is the key. But we've all made mistakes, so don't beat yourself up about it. Because we've all made mistakes. There's things that I've got wrong, and handled things wrong. And that's what being a manager is like, ever evolving, listening, learning, holding your hands up, saying I made a mistake, and learning from it, and saying the same to your team. It's like being a parent, isn't it? It's better to be a parent where you say, sorry, I was wrong there.
Yes.
That's what I'd say to my daughter. I was wrong there. I shouldn't have said that or whatever, if I did.
Without obviously naming any names or companies that you work with, can you talk us through some situations that you've been brought into to try to mediate? From an employee's point of view, what's gone wrong in that situation? What could have changed? What could companies do better?
It's situations where an employee hasn't wanted to say that they're neurodivergent perhaps until the mediation actually happens, and then they come out with or they might have tried to say it and it's been shot down.
Right.
I think that a lot of the time the employer will understand more when they actually take the time to listen to the employee. I think that people have this attitude that ADHD is people running around the classroom, like I said, so they don't see it in a person. I think it's that lack of understanding, lack of believing that the person's actually neurodivergent, thinking, you're just jumping on the bandwagon or whatever, and not really taking the time and care to understand it. So mediations work out when they actually listen to their staff. And sometimes it can be the other way around, where the neurodivergent is the manager, and then they're seeing things not many times, but when they're seeing things in a certain way, and they can't keep up because the staff might be neurotypical and can't keep up with this neurodivergent ADHD who's going off on tangents all the time, changing things constantly, which I know I've done as a boss. I know I kept saying, right, we're going to change doing this now. So it's listening to each other's point of view and coming to an agreement, really.
Which is probably typical for business leaders anyway. Smaller businesses,
a lot of people
we were talking
are,
about earlier, like creative, like I mean, I struggle myself, like in my business that I have 100 ideas, like which one do you go after?
Exactly,
And I have another business that I've just started on the side. Like there's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
which I'm sure staff would really struggle with.
Yeah.
It is. It's hard to keep up, isn't it? Sometimes, and I think indecision is a big one for ADHDers. It is a big one.
Yeah.
I struggle with it.
Yeah.
You know, knowing what you want to concentrate on first, because you're excited about everything. You want to do everything. If you're in that position, if you're in a good position.
Do you find as a business owner you were more a leader than a manager? I don't know what I mean by that. That is Steve Bartlett, Huel drinking rubbish, right? But I think neurodivergent people are very good at having, ADHD people are very good at having the idea and being able to execute it, but not necessarily transmit it to the world around them. You agree with that?
Yeah. I think it just, we want to do everything ourselves, and sometimes that's hard. So if we like it, apart from admin, that is. I like to do everything myself. Like I enjoy doing posts. I enjoy doing the sales. I enjoy doing the coaching, the mediation, the talking, speaking to the say, and it's hard to give it. Delegation can be hard, and I suppose I'm not a perfectionist at all, but I like to do things right. I suppose I'm ethical, and so if people don't do it right, that's when there's possibly a problem. But yeah, I think it's just, again, just listening to your team, working out what's going to work best for them, and like you say, leading. So I never sat in an office on my own and twiddled my thumb and just cracked the whip. I would always be the top salesperson that other people were watching and seeing how I did it, and I was inspiring them. Then they all set up their own businesses because I taught them too well. but they're like my prodigies, so I like that.
Yeah.
What's the most embarrassing moment you've had at work?
At work, God, probably when I worked in, well, there'll be loads, but what I can think off the top of my head is when I worked in construction recruitment. And I walked through a load of cement on a building site twice. So I did it cement once, tarmac. One was at Bradford City football ground actually. I walked through a load of tarmac. Wasn't looking really, I was just walking and just got stuck. So that's two for you. But there'll be loads.
When you hit your lowest point professionally, what did you need that you didn't get?
Lowest point professionally. Probably my lowest point was when I had to make everyone redundant after 2008 recession.
Yep.
What I didn't get, I just think that there wasn't much support out there for businesses who were like me, a small business owner who had built a business that was really successful, and then not down to me. My dad had it in the one before that because he had a printing firm. It's the only time I've seen him cry actually, when his firm went bust. I didn't go bust, but we had to let everybody go that worked for us. So we had a successful trades and labour recruitment business and a final builders clean business, and the construction industry just went.
Yep.
So we had one company owed us 100 grand gone, and then a load of other ones owing us 50, 60, 70 grand. I mean, we were insured on a lot of it, but we lost a lot. So we've gone from this massive office in a converted mill with like a massive office with two spiral staircase to two more, to then just a small office on its own, and I was having to just pick whatever I could do. So I started changing it up. That's been my secret to success, pivoting every time there's a problem. So I knew I couldn't do that anymore. That's gone. So I started doing training for people who were a friend of mine that used to be my boss. Started a training business for people who'd found themselves redundant. They'd been in the same job for 20 years, working with the job centre. So I started rolling out this training, and I was delivering the training in my office. So I was using it for a different purpose. And then my dad had a side business, selling these, what they're called? What are the light bulbs called that last for ages?
LEDs.
That's it, yeah. So I started doing that as well. So I was invoicing my dad's mate's company to go and sell LED lighting in City Electrical. So I had to just turn it around. I had to just find money from somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think the lack of support for people going through that, and like the creditors meetings that I went to where we were owed absolute loads of money from these massive companies that just went and then started up again. Preparing yourself for that unjust and unfairness, and then crying when I had to make staff redundant. That was the toughest time I've had in business, definitely.
Can I ask what drove you to succeed again? You know, what picked you up off the floor? Is it ADHD and you just thought, I'm going to pivot to the next thing, and your brain?
I think so. I mean, I think that's a big part of it in life. I think, I've always been resilient. So whatever life's thrown at me, I've always kind of picked it up and gone for it. So with that, But and it is pick you up and gone for it, and then it come back down again. It is literally a roller coaster. That's how I would describe it, really. Because with that one, recession hit, had to change it around. We're doing these bits and bats, and then I thought I'm going to have to go and work for someone again. So I put my CV on a job board. I got inundated with calls. So I went for a few positions through a recruitment consultant. And I thought, I'm just going to do what he does. She does. She must have been livid. So I started a new business. I'd never ever done headhunting before, because when it was trades and labour, it was literally walking on building sites selling and then ringing job centres. So I just had to retrain myself on LinkedIn to headhunt. And I started placing, so that was my next business for 10 years. I recruited recruiters. I headhunted recruiters and placed recruiters in the industry, if you can get your head around that. Recruit it's called. But even with that, what came as the big low was I just found that I thought, right, I'm sorted now, this is it. I rang my mum, started spilling as we usually do. I've got it sorted, and she's like, your dad's had a stroke. So up in Glasgow, so that was the next step of it was fine. Well, it wasn't fine. It was totally paralysed down the left hand side, and he's still disabled quite heavily. But again, being an ADHD, he plays one-armed golf. And he's a massive gamer, and he's got a one-hand gamer. So he doesn't give up. He just carries on, even though he can't walk very well and stuff. And that's the resilience is the key to ADHD. But again, I had a privileged upbringing, really, and surroundings and supportive parents and partners or whatever, friends. If people don't have those things, then that's when they can find themselves drinking, drugs, whatever else.
I mean, it's its own podcast. We touched on it last year. I mean, you'll never know until you've owned your own thing the jeopardy of even maybe having to let somebody off.
It's awful. It was the worst thing ever.
And of course, if the day it doesn't hurt is the day that you become a psychopath, and you probably shouldn't be doing anything, right? But it is an awful thing. You think you could work for somebody? No,
that's what I realised. I think.
Yeah.
I thought about it at the time, and that's why I thought, I'm just going to have to do this. I just can't do it. I'd gone for interviews, I'd been offered things, and I was like, I just can't do it. And I've thought about it again, probably this time last year.
Yeah.
And I was offered a direct position at a company that's in recruitment. I went to do a day in their office. I thought, I can't do it. I can't do it. I want the gig for myself. I want to do it for myself. After so many years in business, I've had my own business at 27, and I'm 49 now. I just don't think I could take orders.
Can we just touch on Ellie being on The Apprentice?
Ellie was on The Apprentice.
Yeah.
Can you just explain that experience?
So that was again another ADHD moment where my husband at the time, my ex-husband, he was playing cricket. I put that on my Plenty of Fish. No cricket players at all after that. He was playing. I even went for grounds of divorce, but they threw it out. They said that's not enough to play cricket. But anyway, he was playing cricket, and it wasn't great between us. And I just applied on a complete whim. There was an advert on TV. I wrote it all, didn't check any of it, sent it. And then I just kept getting through all these rounds, and then suddenly I was on it, which was weird, really weird. Really exciting experience. I was just buzzing. If you see the picture of me in the boardroom, I'm like this. Everyone else is like, and I'm like, yeah.
We'll get that edited in.
Yeah. It was surreal and fun.
Yeah.
But the fourth episode, I had a big argument with the other girl in the boardroom, because she unjustly took me in there's rules and stuff that they don't go into, where I wasn't allowed to move from this post in this massage task. I've done everything on that show, like making dog food, massage tasks, creating a animal noise app, and selling blooming vegetable pasta. That's where I spelt vegetable wrong, outside Euston Station. But anyway, she took me in unjustly, and we had a big argument, and then when we came out, I blanked her. Like I walked past her. And I felt bad about that afterwards, but I was fuming about it. Whereas the next episode, the dog food task, the one that called Billy Bullshitter on national TV, Vince, I said to him, do you know what, I've been in that cafe 3 times. I said, just take me in. This is what happens with ADHD is a lot. We're very sociable, very chatty. I loved it, made some good friends. They came to my wedding, I went to theirs. It was brilliant, it was buzzing, but I'd had enough, really. I kind of wanted my home comforts. It was very, dog eat dog. Great people, but very dog eat dog. And so I said to him, just take me back in. And then, like I said, the editing was annoying, because when they said you're fired, I said, oh, thanks, I've had a great time, it's been a lot of fun, and they just put me going, okay. And it's the worst photo ever. It's like the editing of me. I look like prisoner cell block age, honestly.
Really?
I look so bad. It like edited me to look absolutely horrendous. And it was weird experience because Twitter, a lot of followers on there, and most of it really good, but then I had someone say I look like a man with a wig on. Someone said I look like I had a face like a thumb. It's brutal. I would not want to be famous, you know. It is brutal, and the RSD is terrible. This rejection sensitivity that a lot of ADHD. I was like, I couldn't sleep thinking, God, I've got a face like a thumb. I look like a man with a wig.
I mean, no offence to Dan who's editing this for us, but I can rest assured, if you edited badly on this is accidental, not deliberate. Right? And he's trying his best, all right? Okay, so we can at least make that commitment today.
Yeah, right? I've had a bad experience of editing. But the whole thing you watch for the first time with everybody else, and it's like literally behind the seat thinking, oh God, that didn't happen. I kept going, that didn't happen.
You say with everybody else, the cast, or back
well,
at home?
No, just everybody. I didn't know what was coming.
Anybody would listen.
Yeah, I was with my friends and family watching, you know, on my own, mostly my husband at the time, but it was like, God, that didn't happen. It just didn't happen like that, because it's like 200 hours down to 1 hour.
Yeah.
And so it was, annoying. But I didn't come across, I just came across, it didn't show my business acumen that well, but I came across normal and down to earth. That's what everybody said.
Good.
And obviously said, it's called someone Billy Bullshit, and what did I also say? Billy Big Balls or something like that. Bit of a wide boy, I called him.
Okay.
But anyway, they seemed to
and he
like
was,
that.
right? I mean, you're accurate on that.
Yeah. He was.
What does he do
He
now?
was at the time, yeah.
What does he do now?
I don't know, you know, but we made friends because we were both on BBC One, whatever it is, This Morning, or whatever the other thing is.
Okay.
BBC Breakfast, we're both on that together, so we made friends. We had a couple of nights out. We were just totally different people. But we did make friends, so it was fun. So much fun.
What's the truth about neurodiversity at work that makes leaders uncomfortable?
I think it's that they've sometimes got better ideas than the leaders, I'd probably say. So that's what I found with the coaching of women. Sometimes their managers don't understand them, because they're coming up with really good ideas and really good and thinking, why are we doing it like this? It's a long way around, and then the manager's like hasn't come up with that. So I think that's one of the biggest problems that they have.
Insecurity in management.
I think so, yeah. And I think other than that, it's better to just think this person is great, they're on my team, I should utilise their ability, and what a great idea, I never thought of that. I can see why that's a bit, you know, like about the houses or whatever, we should do your thing. And I think ADHD is definitely like a little bit of massaging of ego. I like it. You know, a bit of you're on the right lines, you're doing well. And I think the same with anybody that's autistic. So if you're literally just pulled up on anything negative and not giving anything positive, that's what causes a problem.
That resonates. Shall I declare my hand?
Yes, please.
I got an ADHD diagnosis 4 weeks ago. And I want to do it for a variety of reasons. One was personal, in that got to 40. I went to a presentation on ADHD and I went, oh God, that's me. I thought, whoa, hello.
Yeah.
You know, it was almost like this is your life. And there was a couple of kind of personal reasons why I wanted to do it, about, you know, wanting, the world does afford me occasionally 4 or 5 hours to do whatever I want to do now, the business being the size it is. And I find that my head's still like a mariachi band, and I'm not really kind of, you know, I'm hyper-focused on something. I certainly I had migraine as well.
Yeah,
and I don't realise. After about 4 months, I'll wind myself into the ground and have a massive migraine. And it was, and also, as much as I play it down, I take being the role of chair of Automate UK quite responsible, and clearly some of the 30,000 people we have in our industry, a lot of them, just by nature of society, works with neurodivergent, and if you want to be representative of the people you're representing, you kind of got to understand yourself. I hadn't really thought about the stigma attached to it probably ought to tell my dad and my brother before this comes out, because, well, they can see if they watch the podcast. But then suddenly on the train this morning, I thought about the stigma, and I actually thought, is there a stigma associated with that? And I hadn't really thought about it until, and I thought, sod it, people who like me will still like me, people who still think I'm a tosser will still think I'm a tosser, whether I've got ADHD or not. But it certainly... I'm pleased I got the diagnosis. No idea what I'm going to do with it. Would love to find a way to chill out more. I think that's the case. Having thought about whether medication or stuff like that, I don't really care that much. But I think about what some of the things, not bad choices I've made, as in big bad life choices. Oh my God, I must have RSD'd so bad about so many things. Losing orders. Or things not going my way
and it keeps you up all night, doesn't it? It's like it ruins your weekend and things.
You just can't switch it off, can you? And I hadn't really factored that in. I'm combined as well, and the hyperfocus thing is the best thing in the world, right? But the drop off the back of it is
tyrant.
Yeah. So I don't quite know what it means for me going forward, apart from I'm hoping that I spent all of 2023, I think, retrospectively hyper-focused in that we were restructuring the trade association, and my own business had some challenges where we had no sales. Then we had all the sales, which is great, right? And I basically spent the first 4 or 5 months of 2024 in burnout because I'd hyper-focused. What I now understand, I'd hyper-focused for a calendar year. And hyper-focusing is the best thing in the world, right? But afterwards, it's a bit woohoo.
Oh, it is, and I think that is what businesses need to realise as well.
And I can't. Why I asked you that question was completely about, could you work for somebody? I work for a parent company that sets out my rules, as in, not as in, but it's basically, can you sell X, can you sell Y? I couldn't work for somebody now.
No.
And when I've had 2 corporate experiences, and both of them I just couldn't cope with the structure. It's
the rules and regulations, isn't it? So, congratulations for being in the club.
Yeah, I'm fine. It's fine. I believe it. I'm pleased I've got the diagnosis, right.
Does it make you feel... So a lot of people feel a lot of like the grieving, really, what could have been if they'd have been picked up earlier. I don't particularly feel that, but I think there's certain life choices I wouldn't have made if I'd have known and been aware of it.
It's very odd. I found out midweek and was kind of quite shruggy of shoulders, and then I really kind of powered down like Pac-Man at the weekend after. And then was quite relieved.
I felt relieved.
Do you feel relieved?
Oh, big time relief,
I wish I'd known sooner so that I could have been a fairer person in my own head quicker. By that I mean that I spent too long, when I first started getting senior industry, maybe when I became a parent, I spent too long getting rash decisions. Maybe having to have too many enemies in my head to try and perform and stuff like that. And I got over that with age and the fact you get to a point where it matters, but it doesn't really matter. I wish I'd maybe known that I had ADHD quicker, so how relaxed I am now by default, I kind of wish I'd been that 15 years ago, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're too intense,
Yeah, and the amount of things I took personally, the things that I
did you struggle with emotional regulation?
Horrifically. Mobile phones used to be frightening.
I think blokes are even more so than women struggle with that emotional regulation when you're ADHD, as in just going from 0 to 100. Really badly. And certainly when the business was smaller and you're having to deal with every single subject and the detail of it, which means you're containing so much information in your head, and half of you don't want to, right, because I'm not interested in it because ADHD. I really don't care about accounts, just how you make money. Is that I would go from 0 to 100. Never towards anybody else. I'd explode incredibly angrily. Never at
somebody, but obviously some poor bugger had to hear it.
Yeah.
We certainly, in the generation of the BlackBerry, we certainly learnt how durable a BlackBerry was.
Yeah.
Because I had BlackBerries pinging round an office like a ping pong table. That's the bit I wish I'd got diagnosed sooner, so I could have been who I am today.
Yeah. Then. Yeah.
You know, so I think a lot of coping mechanisms and having some very good people around me. I always did, but having more good people around me who understand me. But yeah, there's certain little traits that you got to go. I don't understand is kind of my ADHD. Wanting to work in pairs, but never wanting to work in a team.
Yeah. Like one-on-one.
Yeah. You know, something I can bounce off. Probably flexible working to a point. You know, is that, and I wish I'd learned. Basically, I think the worst thing is one of the worst things day to day is that yesterday I had a very, very intense marketing meeting to do Automate UK. We did some really good stuff, and I must have hyper-focused through it, and the kind of the momentary come down and almost burnout on the train on the way back from South London back to North London. I would, that dopamine drop.
Yeah, it's massive, and
awful.
I think that's what companies need to realise, that an ADHD can do stuff 5 days work in 3 days, but the other two they might need a bit of a chill.
Yeah.
And that is a really hard thing for businesses to understand. But I speak to quite a lot of people who are like, well, I've done the work in this amount of time, but if they'd keep going and they'd do 8 days work in 5 days, and then then they'd have a big burnout over the weekend, and then they're coming back in again, but you know, because they can't stop, and it's this people pleasing as well, carry on doing more, and this constant drive. And I think a lot of it is a constant drive to prove people wrong as well, because at school and stuff they might have been put down, they might have been told you're not this, you're not that, can't you be more can't you be more can you be more organised, try harder, come on, try harder, I got that a lot, you could do more, you know, why do you need to do this and that and the other? Then you've got this massive thing, I'm going to prove it, and you go for it. But then there's no sort of stop button, because the brain's constantly doing it, we're just going off in tangents all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I find at the moment, I mean, I'm currently, it sounds a bit Ron Burgundy, so I don't mean like this, I'm currently the MD of my own business, the chairman of Automate UK, and at the moment I'm interim CEO of Automate UK, so I'm doing 3 senior jobs. And what's making me do that? ADHD.
Yeah.
Right, I'm able. But
you are Billy Big Balls then, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, exactly. Billy Big Balls. That's all. We wedged that in well, didn't we? Right. But I have to be careful that's not necessarily ability that's making me do that, because I think, you know, it's my ADHD.
You can't say no. That's it as well.
No.
You can't say no is a big one.
And I want to do it all, but what I've got to watch is off the back that my ADHD is allowing me to do that. Luckily, only for another 10 days we got the new CEO started. But the burnout off it, I've noticed that I don't think my family's probably got the best out of me at the weekend in 2026, because that's been like my charge time. And I've also I also work from home on a Friday, and I really work from home on a Friday, but I don't. I work heavily and I tail off. I understood that's a coping mechanism, that I work heavily about 1 o'clock and then I tail off.
But that's probably because you've put so much work in up until that point. So.
I can't tail off at the moment, and it's ruining my quality on a Saturday and Sunday. Not in a big way, but obviously I've taught myself an ADHD coping mechanism when I'm just doing one job, is that I work hard Monday to Thursday, Friday morning, and then at 1 o'clock just start to do that. And basically I'm working till 7, 8 o'clock on a Friday, which means that the kind of the swing on a Saturday is quite bad at the moment, actually.
You want to get back to your loose women on Fridays?
I do. Really. Yeah, exactly.
And is there anything that we haven't asked you but we should have?
I mean, the main thing I want to get across is that as well as everything to do with work and how managers should act, and they should listen to people and try and focus on the strengths, and is trying to work out if the person's in the right job as well is an important one. So somebody might be, you know, failing at one job, struggling, let's say, not failing, but struggling at one job, but you put them in another job, or you give them a bit of flex and put somebody with them to body double and take some aspect of that job away, and they can fly. So like one person, I'm working with a social worker, brilliant empathetic, caring, kind, because that's a massive ADHD thing as well. Flying, you know, like advocate for people with lives that are a struggle, you know, like challenged lives. But then the amount of paperwork that comes with that, and no admin support. So this person is fantastic at what they do. They want to help people, they want to advocate for people who can't speak up themselves, they might have special educational needs, young people have had a terrible life. But she's constrained by this massive mountain of email flux in, you know, like so much stuff. All she needs is an admin person, and she could change a lot of these more people's lives, and she's beating herself up for not being able to do these things. And this is what I'm seeing a lot. People beating themselves up for not doing enough, but if they had the tools, then they would do. But also what's going on in their personal lives might be tricky because of impulsive risk-taking decisions. Like when I was 29, I had cervical cancer, and that's as a result of being risk-taking probably throughout my youth, getting HPV virus. Then the disorganisation and not realising when my last smear was, so missing my smear, ended up with cervical cancer, hysterectomy, not able to have children, then 10 years of self-sabotage and annoyance with myself. So these things, you know, I threw myself into work and became, you know, even more successful at my work and things, but there was an underlying sadness. So ADHD does come with some tough things as well as great things. So yes, it could be a superpower in certain ways, but there's also a lot of crap usually going on, or often going on. So taking the time as a boss to actually listen to that. And I know it's tiring. I've had people work for me and personal lives come into the workplace, but they do, and they make the person. Yeah. It's not just what they do at work, it's what's going on in the personal life. And if you can look interested, sound interested, be interested, let's say, in what's going on there, and try and, you know, help them in some way, like I offered my staff counselling, you know, so that I could help them be better at work, because they were sorting out stuff that was going on in their life to make them better at work. And I think if there's more empathetic bosses that are willing to offer coaching, counselling, or train themselves to understand them more, then they're going to make more money, because people are going to want to stay with them. They're going to have to pay less recruiters' fees for replacing people who've left. So it is just about thinking it is more beneficial monetary-wise as well as well-being-wise.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.